Hello and welcome everyone, I'm Dr. Hamfist and disaster has struck. I put about 5 hours of work into a informative, thoughtful set review for the entire set of the Witchwood now that the cards are out, and all of that is useless now. So, I promised a set review, you're getting a set review, but put your boots on, strap in. This is going to be the Super Omega Gosu Lightning Round set review, the I did way too much PCP set review. I didn't actually do PCP. Maybe consider listening to me just because I'm decent at the game. I'm like intermittently wild in different, legend in different ladders right now. I'm legend and wild. I usually push like one of the ladders and sort of like flip which one I care about. So I've been legend and standard before, I'm legend and wild right now. Most of this review will be specifically about standard, just because standard is more impacted by new sets. And wild, if it has any highlights, I'll actually cover that, but this is going to be super fast, because I'm basically going to be going through here saying roughly one sentence per card. That's kind of my goal, because I need to get this thing out, and it'll probably be really fun. Ben Brode the Allfather gave the command to internet personalities: go forth and make wild, bold, wrong statements about the set. So that's what I'm here to do. We're going to make some bold and incorrect statements about the set, and then we can look back on it and laugh after the meta has settled and I'm shown to be quite wrong on some of these predictions. But let's get right into it. Witchwood Apple is bad. It fills your hand with bad cards, and there are better ways to fill your hand for Hand Druid even in this set. 1 star. We'll do the star rating, right? Yeah, we'll do stars. Druid of the Scythe is either a Shadow Bolt or a Squirming Tentacle, neither of which are good, and the upside of being able to choose is not strong enough. 1 star. Here's what it would look like if you got it off Fandral, which is rotating, so you'll never see it be this good. Tough luck. Ferocious Howl is a strictly better Shield Slam, which means it will see play in the strong control package that Druid has. 3 stars. Witching Hour. Crazy potential to be better this in future sets, but right now 3 stars, lack of support holds it back from being better than that, but very excited for it in the future. Forest Guide is trash and does trash things, and it should feel like trash. 1 star. Generally, adding 1 mana and taunts to another card is a bad idea, and you should never do it, and it would make the card worse. On this super high health stat line, it's maybe worth it in Druid, especially because Druid can pay extra mana by ramping, so 3 stars. Whispering Woods. The payoff is kind of confused because this would be more easy to leverage in sort of a tokeny base deck, but that would jettison its hand, so 2 stars because it is a relatively powerful effect, but you can't quite make the package work. Gloomstag. This is a disappointing card because it only works in Odd Druid, and it also is just a boring taunt minion in Odd Druid, so underwhelming, but I have to give it 2 stars just for the great stat line. Duskfallen Aviana. It's probably better to just concede. That costs 0 mana. 1 star. Splintergraft. I have to give it 2 strictly because it's the greediest card ever. This alone represents 18 worth of stats minimum if you pull this off, so in specifically greedy control, maybe there's some world where this sees any play. Hunting Mastiff. This is going to be good, and it's going to be really, really good with beast synergies, and you don't need to jam too many of them. You can probably get away with Scavenging Hyena and be super happy about this card. So 3 stars, possibility to move up if there's more beast support. Dire Frenzy. Good, but sort of in the same package as Witching Hour. Not enough support to be better than 3 stars right now, I think, although I would be very tempted to give this 4 if we saw a few more beasts. Vilebrood Skitterer. This card is bad. It's not going to see play. You're not going to be too happy to pull it off Build-A-Beast because it's going to be in the second package. The only way this works in Build-A-Beast is if you tack a ton of health onto it, but you have to know to tack a ton of health on it before, because this is in the second card pool. So I don't think it'll see play, and I don't think you'll even see it off Build-A-Beast that much. 1 star. Duskhaven Hunter is actually a decent card in attack mode, but it's not always in attack mode. Only half the time is it. It is very, very bad in defense mode because it's a 2/5. They're not going to trade into that, so the stealth is wasted. It's a vanilla 2/5 in defense mode. But in attack mode, you can deal 5 to the opponent and have a 5/2 left over. Maybe. 2 stars. Wing Blast. Going to give it 5 stars, although I could see it being more of a 4. It probably makes it into every single Hunter list, and if it doesn't, it would probably only be super aggro just because it can't point face. Carrion Drake. This would be good if it was always poisonous, but it's not always poisonous. You'll usually be able to pull this off, but if you don't have some way of either eating a minion with a weapon or trading one of your own minions, you can't make this poisonous, and it's a trash card for 5. 2 stars. Rat Trap. The card itself, 1 star. It's very meta dependent though, so it could easily move up in the right metas, but in general, no easy way to guarantee this ever triggers. Its inclusion does buff other spells, other secrets in Hunter in general though, so I'm still fine with this card. And if it's epic, that's the right type of card to see Fringe play. They're the hardest to get. Toxmonger. Have to give it 2 stars. It could easily move up, but the catch with this is you don't want to play your 1-cost minions after turn 4. So wouldn't you rather just jam that earlier? And then what do you combo this with? Maybe you play it on curve with Ravencaller in some sort of maybe Quest Hunter deck? 2 stars. Helmmaster Shaw. 4 stars. Almost tempted to give it 5. I don't think it'll be quite that good. This is a great stat line. We haven't seen this stat line in many classes yet. We saw it in Mage, but Mage isn't too terribly board focused, and is more synergy focused with spells. This is a good stat line. The effect will stick around, and the effect is definitely a strong one, so 4 stars. Emerus. 1-star power rating, 3-star meme rating. I'm kind of disappointed by this because whenever there's a zany, goofy, bad legendary, I'd like it to be crazier. If the effect is only this wacky, I would like to see this be more playable. If it is this bad, I'd like to see it be full Mayor Noggenfogger wacky where it's super fun to play. This probably isn't even quite that fun to play with. Snap Freeze. Well, Shatter is rolling in its grave. This is still 1 star, despite being strictly better than Shatter. Black Cat, a strictly better Azure Drake in only Odd Mage, which probably can't really benefit from the spell damage as well. Still, 4 star in only Odd Mage. Vex Crow, going to give it 3 stars. As long as you get 1 minion off of this, it's actually decent value. You can kind of look at this as being a 2-mana 3/3 with a scary effect at that point. The 2-cost minions will be bad because they're random, so that is possibly a little bit generous. Cinderstorm. I hope I don't have to explain to you why this is terrible. Examine magic missiles. Now examine the comparison. 1 star. I would give it 0 if I were allowed to. Bonfire Elemental. Sure, I guess in specifically Elemental Mage, this will get a 3 star. Curio Collector. This card is bad. It is not consistent. You can be doing better things with 5 mana. It is almost only good after either already playing Aluneth, or if you are comboing this with card draw. Book of Specters kind of gets there, but you are jumping through a lot of hoops at that point. 1 star. Book of Specters, 5-star card. You are going to see this in Wild. This is a Wild viable card. It will probably make Mage Giants a thing in Wild, which I'm a little bit disappointed in. But this is a cool effect. Even if you only draw 2 cards off of it, it is still strictly better than Arcane Intellect at that point. So this is a very powerful card. 5 stars. Arcane Keysmith. Hard to evaluate. I'm going to give it 3 stars. There are plenty of bad secrets to pull, but when it pulls a good one, you'll be relatively happy with this. It saves you the card compared to other secret jamming synergies. Most secret synergies are leaving Mage, so you're not going to really see this that much. The only one that's staying is the 2-drop 2/3 that draws you. The Arcanologist draws you a secret. That is not a synergy with this card specifically. So there's no real support for this card. It sort of just stands alone right now. Archmage Arugula. This is a very strong card. Going to give it 5 stars. If you jam this on turn 2, it has a decent chance of actually staying alive against certain decks in Standard. As long as it draws 1 card, this is a huge payoff. And you can combo this with cheap card draw, like Book of Specters. You will probably even see this in Wild, and it might even make its way into some weird lists that you wouldn't think, like Exodia Mage. Maybe. Toki Time Tinkerer. As far as a power rating, going to give it 2 stars. There are plenty of bad Wild legendaries, but I am super happy whenever I see 1 strong class legendary, which Archmage Arugula is, and then, I know it's Arugula, and then 1 super awesome legendary. And this is a super awesome one. It's a blast from the past for any Standard players. Obviously, this is a joke in Wild, but I do like that it's fun, and it's at least not total garbage. So, happy with this one, even though it's a 2-star power rating. Rebuke. This is probably a bit overblown by the community. I think I'm going to give it 3 stars. A big piece of why Lotheb is good is because you are getting that 5/5 body. The one notable synergy is Divine Favor. It will be good with that. 3 stars. Probably a singleton. Sound the Bells. Maybe in Quest Pally, maybe. 2 stars. Ghostly Charger. This is very much worse Dispatch Kodo. Almost always. 1 star. Paragon of Light. This is a confused stat line for a buff. Why are you going to be buffing the attack and then this is the payoff when you're buffing attack in your Pally deck? 2 stars. Bellringer Sentry. Do not underestimate pulling cards out of your deck for free. Simply avoiding drawing 2 1-cost cards is value, despite the fact that this plays them for free as well. So I'm going to give this a 4 star, though I don't know if the Paladin secrets are quite there yet, but people said the same thing about Mysterious Challenger. Silver Sword costs too much. Maybe with Ebon Dragonsmith you can get there. So that is going to be really iffy. But if you don't know what I'm talking about, there is a total sleeper card in Cobalt and Catacombs that hasn't seen any real play, which is partly because it's not that great too, but this is what I'm talking about. Ebon Dragonsmith, just maybe. We'll give this a 2-star in case there's maybe some sort of list that jams this thing out. In general, it's probably tending towards 1. Hidden Wisdom. This will actually, possibly surprising, get 2 stars rather than the Rat Trap 1-star rating. The advantage here is if you are going first in your Paladin control list, you can jam this at turn 1, and then if your opponent plays 2 1-drops using the coin, it immediately triggers. That is an advantage over Rat Trap. It is possibly more likely to see play because of that, so I'm going to give it 2 stars. It might just barely get there in some sort of control Paladin list. Cathedral Gargoyle. When this triggers, it's a crazy good card. Taunt and Divine Shield on a 2-drop 2/2 is absurd. That is better than Shielded Minibot, which sees play in Wild to this day. Notable flaw with this card, at least in the current meta, it does not trigger the battle cry when you call to arms this, which is absolutely what all Paladins have been about recently. So, I bet when call to arms rotates, this will really start to shine if there's enough dragon support for it. Right now it's a little bit confused, but as far as the card by itself, it's probably a 4-star card when you're actually triggering it, just because it's not consistently better than Divine Shield Taunt, or it doesn't consistently have Divine Shield Taunt, but probably a 4-star card on its own if you could make a dragon deck work. Glass Knight. This is a very confused card. We have seen a Divine Shield 3/3 before. In neutral, you probably don't even remember that, because it was not a thing. When has Silver Moon Guardian ever been a thing? Did you remember that Silver Moon Guardian was a card? This is barely better the turn you play it. There is the potential to recur the Divine Shield if you keep it alive. If you can keep it alive, sure. It's going to get 3 stars for the potential to maybe combo with Benevolent Djinn, at which point you're getting the Divine Shield every turn without having to play future cards. Prince Liam. Probably going to give this a 3-star. I think it only fits into Odd Pally if Odd Pally is a thing, but in Odd Pally you'll jam a ton of 1-cost cards and you'll want to sub this out, so 3 stars. Divine Hymn. I'm going to give it 1 star because healing doesn't exactly work, and Circle Heal is probably better, and then Binding Heal is also not really seen play ever and is very similar to this card, even though this is blatant power creep on previous heals. 1 star. Squashling. Maybe. It is quite good when you're top decking late game, so I have to give it at least 2 stars. I think that's all I'm going to give it, but I'm also a bit of a cynic, and also think that this set is a bit of a step down in power level, which is not a bad thing, because it sets a tone where we don't have to power creep heavily throughout the rest of the year, but 2 stars. Quartz Elemental. Very weird one to evaluate. Going to give it 3. It's probably very good in Odd Priest, but I don't think Odd Priest will be a thing, but this may see play outside of Odd Priest in just general control type priests, and it does have a very nice heal synergy sort of combo where they probably will not invest the resources necessary to kill this, at which point your heal synergies have a target. Holy Water. Going to give it 1 star. Don't think it quite gets there. It is very, very bad into aggro. Coffin Crasher. Have to give it 4 stars just based on the fact that it's cheating stuff into play. That is always more powerful than you realize and always gets better every set. So, going to have to give this 4 stars. Don't think it's quite at the 5-star level. Nightscale Matriarch. Hard one to evaluate. There's not that many dragons left. We're losing Operative, and we are losing the Netherspite Historian. So if you are going to see dragons, and I think you probably will see some dragons in Priest, because they notably are keeping one huge dragon payoff card, you will probably see this just incidentally to keep your dragons live in the Priest decks. So going to give it 3. I don't think we're going to see Dragon Priest, but if we do, this might make it in there. Vivid Nightmare. Roughly Mirage Caller, but the advantage being, namely, that this is a spell. So when you are comboing this with Radiant Elementals and Lyra, it is probably better, and we have seen people experiment with Miracle Priest. Maybe this brings it close there. I'm going to give it 2 stars. Glitter Moth, 1-star card. Paint this picture in your head. You are playing Priest, you have 1-cost minions, and you have 3-cost minions, and that is it before this. So explain to me how going into turn 5 you are going to have a board, especially with your hero power doing nothing until there are living damaged minions on that board. 1 star. Chameleos, 5-star card, is probably a little bit overblown by the community. This is relatively bad into aggro, and it does suffer from the fact that you will often see cards that are synergy or combo cards that you don't have the rest of the package for. That said, It is crazy good in control. It tells you what answers your opponent is going to have. It does not actually cost you the card because you can eventually cash this in, short of you actually playing it as a 1/1 when they empty their hand, or the turn you play this, it is a 1/1 that turn. So not a totally flawless 5-star card, but almost guaranteed this will see play in most priest decks. You will just jam it before you pick 29 other cards, except for maybe some fringe decks like Combo Priest if it sticks around. Lady in White. Very powerful effect, very bad tempo itself. You cannot include cards that are bad without this. I've explained the math before. If you have 2 cards, you have a 50-50 chance of drawing whichever one first, but if you draw Lady in White first early enough, you still can't jam some other stuff. It has to be in your deck in order to be buffed. So every card that you add most likely will actually beat Lady in White, so it must be good without it, so you cannot go jam anything you want. But there are plenty of minions that are better with upside here, only if they get the buff, that are fine on their own too. Cheap Shot. I don't think this is really going to get there. You have to pay 4 mana before this becomes Eviscerate, and there's no real echo synergies that are good at all. So 1 star. Well, I'll give it 2 because it actually just does something, so we'll give it 2. Blink Fox. This is basically a strictly worse Swashbuckler. Anytime you add X cost to the mana and then X and X to the stat line, it is worse, but that said, Swashbuckler is brilliant, so this is a 4-star card. Cutthroat Buccaneer. This is definitely a step down from the Naga Corsair, I believe it's called. 3 less attack for 1 less mana is much worse. And then combo, rather than Battlecry, is definitely worse when you can't routinely use this. But if Kingsbane Rogue is a thing, this will be a thing in Kingsbane Rogue. So have to give it at least 2 stars. Pickpocket. Going to give this 2 stars just like Cheap Shot. I don't think the echo support is really there. There is a huge glaring flaw in the Burgle Rogue payoff in the Legendary. So this will get 2 stars. Mist Wraith. This is probably worse than Tazdingo. Tazdingo does not see play. The turn you play this, you are probably not playing an Echo card, because you will waste your Echo card. And if you wait around to see if you can buff it next turn, it has Soft Taunt, because if they can kill you, they will kill you instead. And if they can't, they will probably kill this. So it is worse than Dingo. The payoff would be if they somehow leave this up, you can then jam several Echo cards the following turn, perhaps 3, get this thing up to 6-8, and be like, brrrr, but I don't think it's going to really get there ever. 1 star. Cursed Castaway. Have to give it 2 stars. Very tempted to give it 1 because it compares relatively poorly into Starfire, but being able to tutor for a relatively specific card in your deck is a bit of an upside. Spectral Cutlass. This is... I have to go into this one. This is the worst card I think I've ever seen. It's so bad. So True Silver Champion doesn't really see play right now. This deals 4 and heals for 2 with 2 durability. Compare it to Spectral Cutlass before you buff Spectral Cutlass. It is a 4-drop 2/2 with lifesteal, meaning it has 2 less attack and otherwise is comparable to True Silver Champion. That said, True Silver Champion would be worse in Rogue than it is in Paladin, because when you equip it, you do still have a hero power if you are a Paladin, and if you equip it on a Rogue, you do not have a hero power now. So, this is probably just a much worse True Silver Champion in a class that would actually not be as happy to have True Silver Champion, and True Silver Champion is not seeing a play until you start buffing it. At which point, if this is good in the meta at all, it will get wrecked by weapon removal, which I am seeing in the standard ladder right now without a card like this. And what happens when you find a rogue on ladder? Read the text. What happens when you find a rogue on ladder? It does not have anything besides 4-drop 2/2 weapon lifesteal. So if you see rogues on the ladder, this will not ever be a card ever. And you are a rogue. So if this deck is good, this deck will be terrible into itself and will just be a slugfest of terrible cards. So, 1 star, terrible, dies to removal, which is what Kingsbane does so elegantly, is dodge all of the removal with some minor loss to the efficiency. Wanted. Have to give it 2 stars just because Miracle Rogue is a thing. I don't think this will be a good card in any way, but it will see at least experimentation and possibly play in Miracle Rogue, the deck that never dies. Face Collector. Bad. Very bad. Play Gorgon instead. Go find Gorgon. Gorgon is better. When are you going to pay 6 mana to play this twice and get 2 random legendaries? No. Gorgon is better. 1 star. Test Greymane. Going to give it 4 stars because it is very much better than Yogg-Saron in that you can get minions back with it too in addition to spells. You have to be relatively careful with what you play because it'll be recurred with random targets, but you have some actual control over this, so you can choose effects that are good without any specific, target needed. So, You can choose what you recur. You get to recur it later. This is going to be high value, but what happens when you are against a rogue? So 4 stars in general, 1 stars into rogue. Rogues exist on ladder. Almost fair to say average to 3. I guess we'll still leave it at 4. Zap. This is backstab with overload synergies, which is probably better in wild than it is in standard right now. So this card actually may be better in wild and see play as a 4 or 5 star card in wild. I'd honestly put it at 5 stars. It's arguably better than backstab for aggro shaman. This will probably see play in even shaman in standard, because you can spend your extra lumped up 1 mana that you can't really use next turn when you can only spend it in even amounts. It's a very powerful card, very high tempo card. Overload isn't always that much of a drawback. You can kind of compare this to Smite and say you are putting 1 mana on the next turn. When you make that comparison, you see other cards start to line up. You can look at Lightning Bolt, that is a 2 mana deal 3. You can look at Totem Golem, that is a 3 mana 3/4. They're very even cards, and you remove 1 mana and put it on the next turn, it suddenly becomes crazy. And that is what this has done with Smite, which has seen some play, Holy Smite. So this is going to be a crazy card. Witchwood's Apprentice, or Witch's Apprentice. This is basically a strictly worse Babbling Book, but Babbling Book is pretty good. We'll give this 3 stars. Ghostlight Angler. Maybe in Quest Shaman. 2 stars for potential. Blazing Invocation. I'm going to give this 2 stars. I would be very tempted to give it 1 because we have all seen I Know a Guy and it is trash. But the one nice thing about this is it is a cheap shaman spell that can activate the Bog Shaper. Earth and Might. This is basically a strictly worse version of a druid card we have seen. And Mark of Yashraj, the only thing about this, drawing a card is better than getting a random elemental to your hand because there are bad elementals. The one nice thing about it being always an elemental is it helps you string elementals. The only reason I'm going to say Earth and Might really does compete with Mark of Yashraj is because the elemental package in Shaman is much better than the beast package in Druid. There are a lot of incidental beasts, but there's not that much payoff for going to beasts, whereas Shaman, there's pretty high payoff for going to elementals. So we're going to give it 3 stars, although the card by itself isn't that good. It fits into a nice package. Merkspark Eel is going to be crazy in Even Shaman. So in Even Shaman, this will be a 4-star card. Totem Cruncher, very disappointed by this card. I would like to see it actually gain the effect of totems. That way you could sort of, in a sense, protect your totems behind one large body. Gaining +2/+2 is definitely way better than gaining the stats of the totems, because so many totems have 0 attack, but this is definitely a disappointing card. It will get wrecked by silence. This is a 1-star card. Bog Shaper, going to give it 3 stars. It will see play in interesting combo lists, and possibly also just as a value engine on the top of curves. So, very excited to see this in Malgos Shaman, or perhaps just in Shudderwalk Shaman. Definitely a cool card. Hagatha the Witch. I'm going to give it 5 stars. I think the Battlecry is a little bit confused. It deals symmetrical damage. It doesn't actually even do that much. It's not a brilliant board clear. You can compare this to Deathstalker Rexar. This is going to deal 1 more damage, but also to all of yours, and it costs 2 more. So the Battlecry is relatively bad, and it's also confused with the passive that likes you having minions in your deck, but the passive is very nice. It being a passive hero power, it does not cost you any mana, which helps you actually leverage the random shaman spells that it is adding to your hand. So you can leverage your mana very nicely end game. That is actually very well put together. It's going to get 5 stars, despite the fact I think the Battlecry doesn't quite pay off enough. Shudderwalk, 5 stars. I'm so excited for this card. I'm going to be streaming this the moment I start the stream on Reveal Day, or on Launch Day, which is tomorrow at the time of recording this. So tune in. I'm at Twitch Dr. Hamfist. I'm just Dr. Hamfist everywhere. So if you want to see that, I will be streaming the moment I can, which is not the moment it releases. But when I get back from work relatively early in the Eastern afternoon, I will be streaming Shudderwalk Shaman first because I'm super excited for this. We're going to try some other hijinks too, but this is the first deck I'm going to be playing in the expansion. Witchwood Imp maybe gets there in Zoo. Zoo has a lot of good 1-drops, so I'm not sure if it will. I'm going to give it 2 stars. It has a little bit of potential. The stealth does help this death rattle actually matter and not just get pinged off by your opponent. Duskbat, 1 star. This is a bad card. This is a very bad card. We've seen a 4-mana neutral minion that always does this without the hoops to jump through. You have to jump through a hoop, so you can't play this on turn 3, which means it's not really going to come down any faster. So 1 star. There's the bats. Fiendish Circle. We are losing the only demon synergy that cares about multiple demons. The 4-drop 5/4 is leaving with Gadgets in, so we're not going to get +1/+1 on all demons anymore. This is pretty much strictly worse than Forbidden Tentacles, or whatever it's called, the forbidden card for Warlock that would give you any number of 1/1s based on how many you spent for it. So this is a 1-star card. Dark Possession maybe actually gets there. I'm kind of coming around on this card a little bit. The advantage being it's not a demon wall in your deck, so it doesn't mess with Possessed Lackey. Maybe. I'll give it 2 stars as a maybe option. Curse of Weakness, I'm also coming around on this card. The one thing that it does is it lets you fog your opponent, and then on the following turn actually board clear them. Fog being a card from Magic that makes you take no damage until your next turn, which sets up for super board clears if they play any further into it, and even if not, just being able to take an extra turn is kind of worth a card sometimes. See Ice Block. Blood Witch, terrible, 1 star. Ratcatcher, scarily good, and it might actually push out cards in the Q block lists, which is very concerning. This does not work with Prince 3, but this actually may replace Prince 3. Q block is only losing 3 cards to rotation, but this might be a 4th card they choose to include. Oh, I don't want to see this. I'm going to give it 3 stars, though. Deathweb Spider is not good. It compares relatively poorly into a neutral lifesteal beast we have seen before, Bloodworm. Is 2 more health worth it? Well, when you lose all the consistency, I don't think it is. Is Bloodworm seeing play? No. This is a 1-star card. Glinda Crowskin. Maybe. It's definitely super fun. I'm not going to totally rule it out. I'm going to give it 2 stars. I don't think it's going to see any play in Wild with Giants. I think that's kind of overblown. You really just want to see the Naga Corsairs there, so going to give this just 2. Potential and Standard, maybe. Lord Godfrey. 5-star card. I hope I don't have to explain this. It's better than Defile with a body. Yes, it costs more, but a 3rd Defile effect is crazy. Warpath. Gonna give this 4 stars. This actually is pretty good when you're a warrior and have a lot of mana rolling around because you live long because you're a warrior, and then you like when your minions get pinged sometimes too. So, 4-star card. Woodcutter Axe. This could have no text and it would still be a decent card because 2-drop, 2/2 weapon. Not actually that bad. This text is very strong text. The rush package isn't quite there, so this will be only a 4-star card. But if we saw better rush minions, this could easily be a 5-star card. Rabid Worgen is a bad rush minion. I don't think it will see play. 1 star. Red Band Wasp, maybe. It is very bad late game. Very, very bad late game. I'm going to give it 2 stars for potential. If it works with pings, you can get a 4/2 rush minion for 2. That is probably a lot better than a 3-mana 3/3 rush minion, so I'm going to give it 2. I don't think it'll see much play, though. Militia Commander is very good. This is almost Fireball on a stick. You will see play. 4-mana card. 4-star card. It is a 4-mana card, too. Festerood Hulk. This has got to be worse than a ton of cards that are already in Warrior that are not seeing play. Frothing Berserker, namely being one of them. Frothing Berserker, it has 2 attack by default as well, has 3 less health. It costs 2 less mana, so 2 less mana for 3 less health is already fine. And then when you attack into minions with your minions, you can get +2 attack rather than just the +1 attack. So I think Frothing Berserker is strictly better than this, and Frothing Berserker is sort of fringe playable in the aggro lists. So absolutely a 1-star card. Town Crier. This would be a 5-star card if there were better rush cards. I think I'm willing to give it 5-star cards just because there will be better rush cards at some point. Rush is a safer version of Charge. We are going to see more of it. So I guess I'll give this a 5-star card. Right now, the synergy package isn't quite there, but this is definitely a super powerful card by itself. Like just reading the text, I mean. So this is a 5-star card. I'd like to see better rush minions to really utilize it. Deadly Arsenal is terrible. It is laughably bad. You can't run any low attack weapons, including the 4-drop 2/2 weapon with 2 whirlwinds attached to it, Blood Razor. So this is actually pushing out even 4-cost weapons. You can't really get away with the 5-drop 5/2 Arcanite Reaper, so that mostly leaves Gorehowl. Would you run 2 Gorehowls in order to make this card work and sacrifice all of your low-cost weapons? Probably not. 1 star. Darius Crowley. It's probably generous, but you can almost call this thing a 5-drop 6/6 Rush Taunt. As long as it's beating into something that it can eat, it almost is that good. It has soft taunt, so that's overly generous. And then it can't be 6/6 the turn you play it, or while you swing it with the rush. So yes, that is probably a generous comparison, but it definitely has some upside. I'm going to give it 4 stars, although maybe I'm wrong and it should be a 3. Black Hell Gunspire. Awesome memes, but I'm going to give this 1 star as far as power rating. Don't see it. Into the neutrals. We're making good time, which is important. I've got to get that Twitch stream ready for tomorrow. So Swamp Dragon Egg. Nope. 1-star card. I can't imagine where you would ever play this ever. Swamp Leech, also a 1-star card, but a notable nice inclusion as far as the Build-A-Beast hero power goes. So 1-star, but I don't think it was supposed to be playable. I think it was supposed to influence the Beast package. Lost Spirit, also a 1-star card. Hope I don't have to explain this one. Spell Shifter, it's almost as good as a card that also didn't see play in Mage. I think I was a bit overly excited about this one when I first saw it. Probably have to turn on all cards to see this. The Spell Damage Minion Cult Sorcerer. Well, I suppose it's still standard right now, but that will be rotating. This doesn't really see play. I think it's seen a fringe inclusion as a one-of. I think Spell Shifter is worse because it dies to pings, and because it's not consistently in a 4-1. But against specific matchups that cannot deal 1 damage, the 4-1 is very threatening. So there is a world where if it was always a 4-1, you would possibly play it into certain metas. No, it's not consistent enough. It's a 1-star card. Vicious Scalehide. I don't think this will ever see any inclusion itself in lists, but it does influence the Build-A-Beast package. It's not terrible, so we might see it in some sort of weird, maybe recurring this with the Hunter card that gives it +3/+3. It's not totally unthinkable. I'm going to give it 2 stars, but we'll probably only see it off Build-A-Beast. Blackwalled Pixie is definitely a lot worse than it looks on paper. You can only really profit from this when you have at least 7 mana, and at that point you're paying 5 mana to get your hero power in this. I'm assuming you're in a Baku list before you run this, so let's look at the good hero powers. In Mage, this is a 5 mana 3/4 that can deal 2 damage. Not great. In Warlock, this is a 5 mana 3/4 that draws a card. The advantage being you can also just jam it for 3. That's why it's better than strictly just those. But as far as the text on this card, there often isn't any. So we will give it a 3-star for potential in odd decks, because there are 9 different odd decks that can probably use this. So it will probably see play, but I definitely think it's not as good as people are giving it credit for. HenchClan Thug. I think this is an underrated card, to change the tone here. It's probably only going to see play in Rogue. It might make it maybe somewhere else. Think about this: if you've already readied a weapon, which could be a Baku hero power, a 2/2 for no cards, you can swing the turn you play this. It becomes a 3-drop 4/4 that still has a relatively scary line of text on it. So there is definitely some upside. It's not unthinkable. I'm not sure exactly where it would fit in now, but I definitely think this could take off. It would be a 5/5 before you swing with it the following turn if you were very careful to make sure you were always attacking. So maybe it makes it. Oh, and going to give it a 3-star for that purpose. Marsh Drake. This would be a lot better in Standard if we weren't losing Potion of Madness, which we are. It might even become a 1-of, oddly, in some sort of Priest and Wild, just to have the combo with Potion of Madness and also to have the Dragon tag in your hand. I don't think it's quite going to make it in Standard. If it gets in for any beats, it does a ton of damage, and that's great. So maybe. Gonna give it 2 stars for that reason. Pumpkin Peasant, I don't think it's quite good enough. The one thing is, if it was consistently a 2/4 into aggro, this is pretty good. The lifesteal almost makes this taunt because they don't want to let you make your own trades and keep profiting from the lifesteal. So at that point, it's almost a 3-drop 2/4 lifesteal taunt, which would be very good. The fact that it's not consistently playable at that stat line is definitely a drawback. The 4/2 is probably better into control, but I think that awkwardness does hurt the card. I'm gonna give it 1 star, but it's fringe playable maybe. Ravencaller. Probably will see some experimentation in Quest Hunter and Hand Druid, I would guess. I don't think it's a great card, but I'm going to give it 2 stars because it might actually land in one of those. Tanglefur Mystic. Arguably good in Hand Druid, maybe. It also, I guess, would give your opponent a minion they don't necessarily want to play if they were playing something like Big Priest or whatever. So maybe. I don't think it quite gets there. I'm going to give it 1 star, but it's not unthinkable you would see this somewhere. Walnut Sprite. It's a 3 mana 3/3 with Echo. Not much to be said. The only combo I can really see with this would be playing Summoning Portal in Warlock. I think Warlock has better things to be doing. It's going to be a 1-star card. Felsoul Inquisitor. Interesting idea wasted on a really, really bad stat line. Have to give this 1 star. I would have liked to have seen it be something like a 2/5. The Demon tag maybe means you can perform some Demon buffs with this, but I still think it's a 1-star card. Swift Messenger. Seems bad because of the awkwardness. A 2/6 stat line for 4 is definitely bad. Going to be a 1-star card. Unpowered Steambot is not playable. Do not put it in your Lady in White decks. Yes, the payoff will be huge when it works. It will most of the time not work. I have demonstrated that earlier. It is a 1-star card. Clockwork Automaton maybe makes it into some sort of goofy list. I don't think it'll be a terribly powerful card, it might be a one of in some sort of non-cube control warlock that still runs Gul'dan. 2 stars for that reason. Rotten Apple Bomb. Almost going to give this a 5-star rating. I think I'll only leave it at 4. This is definitely a very powerful card. It compares very favorably to Anti-Killbot, which we have seen. It gives healing to classes that need healing. If you have to beat through this for 5 damage and it heals the opponent's face for 4, that is effectively giving them 9, and it's getting in for 4 beats, which is more than the Anti-Killbot. So, going to give it 4 stars. It is fringe 5. Darkmire Moonkin is a laughably bad stat line. We have seen spell damage +2 on minions before. And the minion that we saw before was cheaper. That is the Kobold, the Evolved Kobold right here. So spending an extra 3 mana to give this +6 health, not really a huge improvement. And in fact, you would rather have that 3 mana floating around to cast spells. And have you seen Evolved Kobold? It did have some experimentation, but this is definitely worse than it. The 2/8 stat line will not survive till next turn, so it is strictly worse. Furious Etten is pack filler, but at the same time, it might actually make it somewhere, maybe. It's almost an Ancient of War. Now, Ancient of War doesn't see play. Ancient of War is probably worse into Silence than this is. Ancient of War is Druid specific. Maybe there is some world. I don't think it's going to see play in Constructed, but this is borderline playable stat line. So this will be decent in Arena. It's basically a pack filler, but it's actually a relatively nice stat line. Wormguard. Potential to be a 4/11 taunt if you were holding a dragon. That would be pretty sick. It isn't always going to be a 4/11 taunt. This is a very heavy card, and it's a very heavy card that doesn't have the dragon tag. Usually in dragon decks, you'd like your really heavy cards that will stick around for a while to have that dragon tag. Don't know if I can totally rule it out, because a 4/11 taunt is nice. We're going to give this 2 stars. It works pretty well with Lady in White. If you are running dragons and can make it work, it is a decent card. We're going to give it 2, but it's going to be pretty fringe. Cauldron Elemental is laughably bad. This has a pretty poor comparison into Stormwind Champion. Have you seen Stormwind Champion since beta? Or, well, since Classic? No, you really haven't. So, giving +2 attack is roughly as good as giving +1/+1. That is also still 2 stats. The 8-drop 7/7 stat line is arguably worse than the 7-drop 6/6 stat line, just because it takes even longer to get this out. The Elemental tag, it only matters on the following turn when you play something after this. This is so tempo dead. I can't imagine this is going to see play. This is a insult to elementals. 1 star. Deranged Doctor. This being a death rattle means it will basically never happen. 8 mana 8/8. You can then swing with this on turn 9. It is very hard to kill your 8/8 by swinging it on turn 9. So it is probably not going to heal you until turn 10 at best. And it doesn't have taunt, so nothing is going to stop them from killing you with this. This is a 1-star card. Phantom Militia, going to give this 3 stars with optimism towards 4 for strictly Baku Quest Warrior. And possibly just Quest Warrior without Baku, but this is definitely going to see some experimentation in that. That deck might be relatively good. So this is a neutral card that really should almost be a Warrior card. I don't think it'll see play anywhere else, but it will be really good in that deck. Life Drinker. This will be really good in Shaman. It is arguably going to see play outside of the specific Shudderwalk combo. This is going to enable your Shudderwalk to go not necessarily infinite, but if you play this with Grumble and with the ability to actually start recurring your Shudderwalk for 1, this sums next turn to be pay 10, deal 30 to their face, and heal for 30. Even if they have armor, they will not be able to keep up with you doing that to them every turn. You will win the game. You will probably just kill them instantly unless they have armor. So this is going to be part of the Shudderwalk combo lists. It might see play outside of that, but I have to give it 3 stars just because that Shudderwalk deck will be pretty good. Mad Hatter is a very interesting one. It is definitely harder to get to work consistently than Bone Mare, but it actually compares almost favorably into Bone Mare. Bone Mare before nerf was a 7 mana summed 9/9 with 4/4 of it on charge. This is a 4 mana 6/5 with 3/3 of it on charge. It is harder to activate because you need to clear their board, so it is going to be worse into aggressive decks. We always see aggressive decks at the start of a meta, so this will be bad at the start of the meta for sure. It will almost have the same properties as Fungalmancer. Fungalmancer became better the longer the meta went on and the more it slowed down. It was bad early, but we saw some experimentation with it, and it is actually making it into lists these days. It is not unthinkable that Mad Hatter will see play later in the Witchwood meta. I have to give it 2 stars for that reason. It definitely is a little bit kludgy, but you only need 1 minion to make this work, whereas Fungalmancer, you need 2 to get the full stat line. So it's not unthinkable. Don't totally write it off. Night Prowler. Totally write this off. It's a bad 1 star. Scale Worm. possibly is going to see some play. I don't know if the dragon package on any specific deck is going to be able to fit a 4-mana cost card here that checks for dragons. It would be interesting to see this in a Shutterwalk deck that plans on holding a dragon, possibly just a Nightmare Amalgam that you can fish pretty easily by fishing for elementals and also fishing for your Grumble that way. If you were holding a dragon and it gives your Shutterwalk's Rush, that would be pretty interesting because you could clear board with it, which would protect you from dying while you then outvalue them the following turn. So maybe it actually sees play in some sort of combo decks. It's pretty good when it has Rush itself, so maybe it sees play in dragon decks. I'm going to give it 2 stars. Witchwood Piper, you are tutoring for a relatively specific minion with this. That means this is a 4-star card. I can't give it 5. It's not a better stat line really than Gnomish Inventor, which is bad, but having some very strong control over what you're drawing, you could in fact make some really goofy lists. I'm going to be experimenting with this day 1 with Hemet Jungle Hunter in a Wild Druid list with Azalina Soul Thief, King Togwaggle, Coon, and Aviana. And those will be these 6 minions. So Witchwood Piper will draw me Hemet, which will greatly accelerate me into the rest of the cards, which will mostly be spells that are cheaper than 4, with some spells that also just are good that are 4 or more. And the plan will be to Aviana Coon them, steal their deck, and then copy their hand so I have King's Ransom as well. And Witchwood Piper will help me do that, so I'm excited to see it. It will definitely see play in some legitimate decks as well. I almost think that wild deck will be possibly fringe competitive, just because that Aviana Coon package, it is a win condition as long as you get a relatively thin list of cards that work with it, and that is a relatively thin list of cards that work with that package to close out the game. So this will see play, 4-star card. Chief Inspector is probably better in Wild than it is in Standard. There are a lot of secrets running around in Wild. There are more secret synergies in Wild. This will probably see fringe play in Standard, but may actually exist in Wild because it compares pretty favorably with Eater of Secrets, not in the case where it actually lands, but against every other deck. A 4-mana 2/4 is pretty garbage. A 5-mana 4/6 is less garbage. So this will see play in Wild, gonna give it 3 stars. Witchwood Grizzly is crazy awesome. I'm very excited to see a neutral card that shuts down aggro. It is bad into control, so it will be a meta-dependent pick. I'm going to give it 4 stars. Gilnean Royal Guard, same awkwardness problems as we've discussed with the other ones. I don't think this is going to be a good card. If it was consistently an 8/3 with Divine Shield Rush, it would be better. I'm going to give it 1 star. If it were 8/3 Divine Shield Rush without the text, I would probably give it 2. Baleful Banker, going to see play in some lists. I don't think it will actually stay long-term in Shutterwalk lists, but just being able to recur strong minions, this can work with quest reward minions, so this is going to see play somewhere. I'm probably even going to give it 4, which might feel a bit generous, but I think late in the expansion when we sort of solved the meta, this will be recurring some pretty nasty stuff. Nightmare Amalgam, tough card to evaluate right now. I think as more tribal synergies enter, with rotation, several tribal synergies are leaving, so right now I think I give this 2 stars. I think later in the year it will become better and will probably improve. Voodoo Doll, only going to see play in decks that can kill this pretty easily without even using extra resources to do it, but there are a few decks that can do that. This is going to be a 4-star card in those pretty nice decks. Witch's Cauldron is just a terrible Cult Master, which is a pet card of mine. I like this card. I would still give Cult Master 1 star. It's a bad card, but I am a fan of Cult Master. The 4/2 stat line is much, much better than 0/4. 0/4 stat line's not going to stick around. Don't have any, crazy vision of this. You play a card like this in order to cash your own minions in yourself, because if you don't, then they will just kill this anyway. So the stat line does just matter as far as the value of it. You are going to cash this thing in when you play it. Cult Master gives you cards you chose to include in your deck. Witch's Cauldron gives you random shaman spells. So this is a 1-star card. Sandbinder. Have to give it 4 stars because it has a relatively specific tutor that it's looking for. You'll probably see this to pull, say, Grumble in Shutterwalk lists in order to accelerate them towards their combo that will kill you. It also will see play just to pull elementals in general elemental check decks, but there are a few notable elementals, including in Priest. There is Lyra and Radiant Elemental. If we see Miracle Priest, which we are getting a little bit of support for, we will probably see Sandbinder because it is guaranteed to draw you one of your 3 pieces to the Miracle. So probably going to see some play. 4 might be a little bit generous, but I'm always wary of any card that lets you tutor for a relatively specific thing from your deck. Muck Hunter, I think you have to jump through too many hoops to make this work. If you were able to recruit this, it would be very nice, but I'm going to give it 2 stars. I don't think you can consistently deal with the muck hunters, or the mucklings. You have to devote resources to do that, and the payoff isn't even that huge. And this is a 5/4 rush if you don't have some sort of hoops to jump through. There's the mucklings. Mossy Horror, definitely going to be good. I think we will see this in Priest with the combo with Lady in White. This is a passable card by itself. It becomes a 6 mana 7/7 with that battle cry after Lady in White. After Lady in White, you will have no small attack minions, so this will no longer kill your Northshire Clerics or any other small minions. So this will be a relatively strong card, even without some sort of combo like that. And with this being a 2/7 stat line, it will work really well in Priest. Probably will see some play outside of it, just as some sort of fringe option. We intermittently saw some experimentation with the 6 mana Murloc, Corrupted Seer. Now, that was definitely in part because you could draw it off of the Curator. That is something to be said for that. But deal 2 damage to all non-Murloc minions is definitely worse than destroy all minions with 2 or less attack. And a 2/3 stat line that doesn't care about the Murloc tag, because you were only pulling it off of the draw, is not nearly as good as a 2/7 stat line. So this will probably see some play. Going to give it a 3-star rating. Worgen Abomination, can't totally write it off. It is weird. I myself don't quite see the vision on it, but it's probably going to see some play. I have to give it 2 stars because it probably will see some play. Splitting Fester Root is interesting. If you can find ways to cheat this out, you'll be pretty happy about that, but it's going to be relatively difficult to do that. I'm going to give this 2 stars for potential. It's just not that high impact when it hits the board. It's always a 4/4. It stays a 4/4 after 2 consecutive board clears, but it's only a 4/4. Dollmaster Dorian, I don't think there's really enough support for this. The one example that comes to mind would be if you are playing Rogue and use Roll the Bones. Roll the Bones from Knights of the Frozen Throne will be standard legal, and it will be able to draw several Death Rattle minions, possibly as many as 6. If you, on turn 7, play Dollmaster and then draw 6 Death Rattle minions off Roll the Bones, you will fill your board with those Death Rattles, which potentially are good effects. So maybe, but I think that deck will be memed here. So I'm going to give this 1-star rating, but I am excited to see some goofy combos with it on Trollden. Notably, it is really good with draw Death Rattles, because you can play those, and if they haven't killed them yet, you can draw a card off of that and possibly hit something. So there's something to be said for it, but I'm still going to give it 1 star. Gen Greymane is tough. It's very hard to evaluate this. There are 9 totally different card pools that possibly make this work. I think I'm only going to give Gen a 3-star rating, but I'm tempted to give him a 4. The late game value is totally lost because you have 2 mana rolling around or have 1 mana rolling around. They are equivalent late game. So this only matters early, and I don't think the hero powers are that huge of a payoff early. There are probably specific decks that will make this work, notably Warlock, where drawing the extra card for just 1 is very, very high impact. So I'm going to give it 3 stars. I think it will get there in a few lists. Azalina Soul Thief, basically a meme card. It's just terrible, terrible, terrible into aggro, and even when you are replacing your hand, you're getting half of combos and half of synergies, and it's incomplete. It's probably not really going to come together, despite the fact they'll be relatively heavy cards. I'm going to give it a 1-star power rating, but I'm very excited for the meme potential when combining this with King Togwaggle. Countess Ashmore, going to give this 5-star rating. It will only improve as we see more rush cards. This says draw a Rush, Lifesteal, and Death Rattle card from your deck, so it will have specific combos in decks that have Lifesteal spells or Death Rattle weapons. So that will be notable. I don't think there's necessarily a Rush card that really makes it neutral. You'll probably see this in Warlock in order to pull Ratcatcher. So this is going to be a 5-star card. It will only get better. Very excited for this card. Baku the Moon Eater. Going to give this a 5-star rating tentatively. Might be willing to bump it down to 4. The thing is that late game, you will always have the mana to spend on this hero power, and it will be great. And this also is the cost of cards that allows you to run 1-costs. And 1-cost cards are very important, and again, losing those is definitely a big problem. So I'm going to give this a tentative 5-star. I think it will definitely get there in some lists, and it will be very good in those lists. Definitely looking at Hunter. I think that extra punchy hero power will matter a lot, and just jamming a ton of 1-costs to grab board and then going over that board with the great hero power, I think it will definitely be strong in a couple of lists. Going to give it 5 stars. And that's the set. Oh, tune in to watch me stream. I'll be on Dr. Hamfist on Twitch whenever I can get there. So probably sometime-ish around maybe 6 to 7 Eastern. I don't want to give any specific time frame because it's going to be as soon as I can. And I have some logistics to work out, which is partly why this video was so rushed It's a shame we lost the, totally refined review of it, but this will be fun to look back on after the meta has settled and it's super wrong. Maybe I'll even review it at some point. I am super excited for the Witchwood. I hope you tune in and have some fun and enjoy the expansion yourself as well. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you around.